Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Nibelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos and originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. In this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamers and ad options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's hit it. Now, of course, I have your friend and my best friend, Blake Creamer, here with me. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
Never gets old. All right, sweet. That's exactly the kind of energy. And is it Pixie Sticks again? Yeah, it's got to be. I know, Nate. Have you tried candy cane flavored Pixie Sticks? That's the thing.
I have not. I think that's my next step here.
Yeah. I know you are a big candy cane man. All right, we talked about this. All right, but yeah, buddy. It's Christmas time. This is amazing. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Yeah, we also had a milestone here at Apples and Genos, didn't we? Oh my God. We have 1,000 Discord members, over 1,000 now. So that's amazing. And I have mailed out the Apples and Genos oven mitts to one lucky winner. This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, folks. I mean, you're cooking a casserole. You don't want to look at some burnt up old gray mitt. You want the Macho Man and the A&G Apple running the show. That's how we do. So yeah, anyways, shout out to our listeners. Thank you so much for your patronage. And yeah, how you doing, buddy? Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent
here. That's all right. I think the oven mitt is part of our folklore at this point, so I definitely think we need to make space for that in the podcast. I'm doing all right. We are loaded up. I've been off for the last couple of days here, so hanging out with the family. My oldest is still in school, but I've been hanging out with my youngest while my wife does all the things on her checklist. I'm just trying to stay out of the way, but still got all the things on my checklist done, and we're getting into the holiday spirit, I will say. So hopefully all our listeners are as well. Merry Christmas from us to you if this is the last time you hear us before Christmas Day. But Blake, why don't we get into some newsies? Let's get this thing started.
We got some newsies, but we also got this. Oh, yeah, that's how we do. I just sprayed myself in the face. If you're watching on YouTube, that's good content right there. All right, let's get into the dang news. We got some stuff going on here. First off, we want to head over to Anaheim, and they got reinforcements coming there in Anaheim. We got Mason McTavish and Jamie Drysdale were back last game. They didn't do too much. I mean, McTavish especially only played like 13 minutes. So, it's going to be a slow ramp up. He's been out for a little while. And we got Trevor Zegras skating there, practicing on line one. So he could be back. I mean, maybe as soon as next game. We have to, wait and see on that. But bad news, Leo Carlsson was injured in the last game. I mean, probably one of those games he should have sat out. Am I right, Nate?
Yeah, I guess that was the one game that they should have sat him out and they missed.
Pat Verbeek, what were you doing? You had one job and you let this man out there? No. All right. He's a young, virile, 19-year-old man. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, Mackenzie Weegar fell on his leg. It didn't look good. So he's getting tests done just to see the severity there. So I think we should get an update on that tomorrow. So yeah, but I mean, one center out, another center in. You got Zegras, you got Ziggy. So, and I think that guy's a major buy low. If he's out there, definitely worth the roster to see what he does. He only has 2 points on the season in 12 games. That's not going to stick, right? This guy's going to get some points. He's going to get back off the schneid. So there you go. My 2 cents. Also, the Jersey Shore, Sean Durzi was back in Arizona's last game. Nice little game too. Played 22 minutes, 2 assists, had a 58% power play share. So that is locked in, right? So I think that's his spot until further notice. So, you pencil him in there. He did have 4 shots on goals and four shots on goal and 4 blocks as well. So that's nice. So yeah, Durzi's looking good this year. I mean, he's looking reasonable, right? He's filling the role that we thought he might fill. I think he, is going to get going a little bit more than he has so far. And we got to talk about the Zucchini Man, Matt Zuccarello. No, he's on the IR. This is terrible, right? Just in time for Christmas. Oh man. This is not the gift that I want to receive. So they put him on IR on December 20th. So That sucks, but we're looking at Marco Rossi as the main benefactor there. He's moved up to power play 1, which he was moonlighting on before that anyway, but I mean, this really secures it. And then Nate's favorite player, Marcus Johansson, as well, gets a little fantasy bump. And how about that beefcake, that beautiful head of hair, Marcus Foligno? I don't know. Are you rostering Marcus Foligno anywhere, Nate?
No, but I think he is rosterable in Bangers Cats format. But yeah, can't say I'm too excited about rostering him.
All right. Well, that's every party has a pooper, right? He does have a nice head of hair. Let's agree on that. All right. Let's move on to Tampa. Mikhail Sergachev is day to day with a foot injury. So just keep an eye on his status there. I mean, Victor Hedman is currently doing his thing. This is awesome. Fun fact, Nate, Hedman has tied his power play points total from last year, 14 in 37 games. So yeah, I don't know what he was doing last season. Just taking a season off, just coasting out there. I don't know what do you think about this? Why is Hedman so much better this year than he was last year? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It literally was just the power play. Like under the hood, Hedman didn't look that much different last year, quite honestly. So yeah, it literally was just the fact that they gave most of the power play time to Sergachev last year, and for whatever reason, internal discussions will never truly know. I know there's been some interviews and things where little bits and pieces have come out, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it sounds like they just decided that he didn't need those extra minutes and they could run Sergachev out there. But this year he does need those extra minutes. Like I don't know how to make it make sense really, but it is what it is. And yeah, for this season, Hedman's a big win.
Yeah, I'm loving it. He's back to business, so that's great. Moving on to Minnesota, we got to talk about the Spurge. He's spurged everywhere. Jared Spurgeon, what are you doing? All right, come on. He's not quite ruled out for Saturday. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, he's not ruled out for Saturday yet, so keep an eye on his status. But Nate, this brings up a great question. What are we doing with Brock Faber once Spurgeon returns? Because this guy's been lights out. I mean, maybe the metrics aren't like popping off the page or anything like that, but this guy's deployment is. He's had like 4 games, well over 30 minutes. What are you doing with Brock Faber? Is it all depending on power play for him, or is he a hold regardless?
I mean, I think you probably just hold him and see where it goes for now, but um, it really is dependent. Like his long term fantasy success is definitely tied to power play 1 in my mind because that's where a good chunk of Minnesota's offense is going to come from when they put all those top end guys together. When Kaprizov and Boldy and Joel Eriksson Ek and either Zuccarello or Rossi now, who's popping off in Zuccarello's absence. When all those guys are together on the ice, that's where a lot of their offense does come from when things are rolling right on that top power play. So I think like if you look at the season, Faber's got a 42-point pace at this point
Mm-hmm.
and 44% IPP and 11.2% on ice shooting percentage. That to me looks like probably the top end of what he's capable of, even if he is getting some decent power play time there. And I think in the long run, like my best case scenario, I would say for Brock Faber rest of the season is that it bounces back and forth. But obviously, we'll see what they decide to do with Spurgeon. If they're easing him back in, maybe Faber takes it for another game or two, and then they flip flop it. But I think honestly, they'll just go with whatever's working at any given time.
Who would you rather have, healthy Spurgeon or Brock Faber?
Probably Spurgeon. He's just demonstrated some goal scoring ability. I don't really think that that's really in Faber's wheelhouse. I think they're not really asking him to play a lot of offense this year either. They're letting him get acclimated, and clearly he's plenty good enough to play defense at the NHL level. So I think for fantasy purposes, Spurgeon would be my choice if I had to.
There you go. Clearly a talented player, Brock Faber. Like obviously
For
good at
sure.
hockey, right? 30 minutes a night. Yeah, you don't just get that, randomly. Like you're doing a lot of things right. So anyway, shout out to Brock Faber. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about Brian Rust and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Rust was on the ice prior to the most recent practice. He is eligible to play on January 2nd. So that's just a little piece of news there. But who is Valtteri Puustinen, aka the Diaper? What are we doing with this man? Is he should he be on a roster at this point, Nate, or is he just a good streamer for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's tough to say, right? Because it is dependent on deployment here and the fact that he's been getting some of those bigger minutes with the rust injury. Um, it's still the case. Like in the last game, he was still up there on the top power play. Thought maybe when Raquel came back that Raquel would replace him, but they've been finally having some success with the man advantage,
Yeah.
which they haven't had for much of the season. So it makes sense that they wouldn't want to tinker too much. Yeah, I'm basically willing to run with Pushnin in my lineup as long as he's on that top power play. As soon as he comes off the top power play, like it'll be interesting to see what happens when Russ comes back because yeah, it's either going to be Pushnin or Riley Smith who gets bounced out of the top six, and obviously either off the top power play or out of the top six. I think both cases that's probably the end of the road for Pushnin for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's going on the all name team. That's a guarantee right there. Valtteri Puustinen,
Absolutely.
aka the diaper. All right, we're running with that. Also, Ricard Raquel got to do it. He's sitting on 0 goals on the season, but he just played a game over 20 minutes. So just something to keep an eye on, right? He's 24% rostered. This isn't the player he is. Like he should be doing a lot better than he is. He's massively underachieving. So just keep an eye on Ricard Raquel. He's probably on your waivers right now, but I don't know if he, like you said, if he gets power play 1 again, we got to pounce on this guy, and deal with it on the back end. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about Aiden Hill and what's going on in Vegas there. He was just placed on injured reserve. His earliest return sounds like it's going to be December 27th. So that's all well and good, but Logan Thompson is day-to-day as well right now. So now we got a bit of an interesting situation in goal in Vegas. And your lucky 0G winner is Yuri Patera. All right. Yeah, that household name, Yuri Patera, who recently got shelled for 5 goals in his last outing. Just keep an eye on the goalie situation in Vegas. This guy could be a good streamer for you, for like we'll get into what we want to do this week because it's an interesting / terrible week to stream. So this guy might actually be an option for you as a 1-game stream, but he's out there. But keep an eye on the goalie situation in Vegas. All right, let's get to biz. Nate, you got to tell us what's going on this week.
Yeah, so obviously we've got a different week on tap with the Christmas and Boxing Day 0 games on Monday, Tuesday to open this week. So we don't get any hockey until Wednesday this week, unfortunately, but we do get 14 games on Wednesday, followed by 4 games Thursday, and then it's 9 games, 9 games, 9 games. Friday, Saturday, Sunday all have 9 games each to round out the week. Yeah, the good part of that is that you can probably get some players in at least on 1 or 2 of those nights. It's pretty rare that you're going to actually fill up your lineup on every single 9-game evening. So you'll definitely have some options around those Friday, Saturday, Sunday, quote unquote, heavy nights. So there's still going to be some options, but it is kind of a weird week and it's going to be pretty tough and pretty limiting for streaming overall. So this is 45 games in total. So it's definitely a light week. They did cram a fair number of games in here. Obviously, we only have 1 true off night with the Thursday 4-game schedule. The fact that we don't have these Monday or Tuesday games is obviously just serving to compress everything here. But basically, we're looking for teams that avoid the Wednesday super heavy night. There's obviously 4 teams that avoid that. And then, but on the flip side of that, we're also trying to find teams that we can actually stream and fit into our lineups. So really your options just kind of boil down to a 1-night Thursday stream and then a Friday, Sunday or Saturday, Sunday team. Or you can do a week-long stream that does the same thing. Philadelphia is the only team that has Thursday, Friday, Sunday as their schedule, and then Edmonton and Montreal are the only teams with Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So really, those are your top 3 options to stream from if you're looking for something week long. What I will say is, in weeks that are difficult to stream well in, like this week, then streaming goalies for a single game becomes a lot more viable since it's usually a lot easier to hit on a single big goalie game than a single big skater game. You can dive into the Vegas lines, you can dive into the advanced stats like I do, and check out how the teams have been playing lately and kind of get an idea for who might have a good game for a lot of these goalies, a lot of these backup goalies getting into games, who's been playing well defensively, who's been playing well offensively, all those sorts of things. So usually it's easier to hit on a single game goalie stream than a single game skater stream. And so that's definitely an option in weeks like this where it's just difficult overall to find a really strong streaming option in general. It's also the type of week to really focus on your lineup to identify if there's anything in your lineup where you're like, man, there's like 5 or 6 guys here that I could probably be dropping and I wouldn't feel too sad about it. If that's your case, then maybe you want to take a look at the upcoming schedules for weeks even beyond this, and you want to identify some guys that you don't really want to be rostering moving forward, and you want to just go ahead and grab the priority guys. If somebody else is streaming hard and they drop a guy that's a priority, get those waiver claims in. If there's somebody out there that's on the wire that shouldn't be on the wire, maybe get that guy on your roster this week, where most of the moves that we're going to make this week, in a lot of cases, there's probably like 1 or 2 moves that can actually get you some games played, get you an edge in that regard. And then your other couple moves, you're probably really not going to get a whole lot out of. So if you do have a situation where you've got a lot of kind of replacement level guys, and there are some players out there on the waiver wire, even if they don't have a great schedule, this is probably the week where you want to be exploring those options. Anything to add there, Blake?
No, yeah, I echo everything you say there. I love, I mean, low key love. I want to win my weeks, but I love scouring the wire for rest of season holds. That always feels good when you would drop a guy and you're like, oh, I'm getting this guy. Maybe it doesn't make sense for your week, but Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care, right? Like now I got this guy on my team and it's awesome. And we got a really awesome list for you later on. We'll get into some of those players that we can look at.
For sure. Well, why don't you go ahead and take us into the worst teams to stream, aka the players that we might want to be dropping based on their team schedule.
What a segue. Unbelievable stuff here. Okay, so we got there's definitely a worse team here. And it's the Vancouver Canucks. Unfortunately, they've got one game this week. It is on the Thursday, that Thursday that Nate was talking about. So, definitely think about maybe holding your Vancouver players until after Thursday, and then, maybe jump on a Friday, Sunday, or a Saturday, Sunday, or whatever it is, whatever makes sense for your team. But, I might be holding a player until that game is over. But let's look at some of the players that are on the Canucks that we could probably get rid of. And the first one is Bench Kuzi. Oh, geez. This has been really rough. I mean, I've got into it on Twitter a little bit here and there, just talking about Coach Tocchet and the successes that the Canucks have had. But one of the things that, I definitely agree with is I'm not a biggest fan of this treatment of Kuzmenko. Like, it doesn't seem like they're trying to boost him up at this point anymore. Like, I've seen some tweets out there too, basically saying like they're getting a frustrated vibe or an annoyed vibe from Rick Tocchet about Andrei Kuzmenko and his play. And that's just not a good situation to be in. Like, this guy's been scratched for 2 straight games. I think you're certainly dropping him after Thursday, especially if he gets in and he only plays like 11 minutes or something like that. Bang, that's a no-brainer. Get rid of Kuzi on your team. What are your thoughts real quick on Kuzmenko and just the situation going on there, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to do a 50% retained and send him Toronto's way, I think we could offer you one slightly used Max Domi in return, and we'd be feeling pretty good about that. But, I mean, overall, it's definitely a tough scene for fantasy purposes. Like, as soon as you see a guy get scratched, like, honestly, once, if a guy gets scratched, like, there's a decent chance he gets scratched again, in my mind. And unless things really start to change and you start to see a coach really start to believe and the minutes really start to go up and be consistent, like, I'm just off that player, because it's so catastrophic to have these scratch games just come out of nowhere and just ruin your lineup for the week. And now you're scrambling to make different ads and your plan goes out the window. It's just not a situation I'm interested in being in. The upside with Kuzmenko, like, we thought it wouldn't be as high as it was last year to begin with, and now with this, like, it's just hands off for me. If you are rostering Kuzmenko anywhere still, I'd drop him immediately.
Yep. Easy drop until this stuff gets sorted out. It's no question. But, one scratch is a message. You know what I mean? That's a message from the coach. Like, okay, all right, I'll pull up my socks and put the hard hat on and let's go. But like 2 scratches in a row, that's like, I have a problem with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot different, right? And this is like his 4th scratch of the year. So I don't know. It's tough times for Kuzi. I hate it. Best head of hair in the biz, no question. And he's such a beauty too. He has the Pepsi and the banana. I mean, this guy's amazing. But yeah, whatever. Talked a lot on Kuzi. Let's move on. He's going to be a drop. And then first liner Ilya Mikheyev as well is going to be it's an easy drop. Although, yeah, he's a great player, but not through a 1-game week here. Maybe hold him for that Thursday, like we said, and then you can easily get off Mikheyev if you're holding him. Okay. Let's move on. There are 4 teams that only play 2 games this week. 3 of them have 0 off nights. So let's talk about them first. That's the Arizona Coyotes, Calgary Flames, and the Seattle Kraken. So starting with Arizona, looking at players that are, probably fringe players that we may or may not want to get off of. Nick Schmaltz. It's weird. I felt like the first half of the season, or the first half of what we've done so far, we're like, Nick Schmaltz. And like the last 2 or 3 episodes, we're like, you can drop Nick Schmaltz. You can definitely drop Nick Schmaltz. But the truth is, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire. He did get a goal the other night, which is really nice. But, the thing with him is, like, when you drop him, he's probably going to be there when you want to pick him up again. You know what I mean? No one's like, I got to get him on my team. I got to get Schmaltzy. Oh, some people are, right? Shout out to the fantasy hockey professor. All right. Loves Nick Schmaltz. And I'm with you, buddy. All right. Shout out to Mike. Yeah, so Schmaltz is there. And then upstart, Matias Maccelli, that shot monster out of nowhere. The guy, he's like a two-face. Last season, no, he's Robert Thomas. This season, he's David Pastrnak. Okay. So that's what's happening with Matias Maccelli. And he's bumped Logan Cooley off power play 1. So that is a really nice development for Matias Maccelli. Definitely a rosterable player. Should be on a roster. But yeah, it's just something you're going to have to think about this week. Those are the 2 players that I think we're questioning the most about dropping with Arizona. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, it is tough. Schmaltz, I had mentioned before, like, it really did seem like there was something else going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did put together a nice little game here in the last outing. So, yeah, when he has a goal and an assist and 3 shots, he had 3 shots the game before that as well. He's obviously still playing his full complement of minutes, 19 and a half minutes, both of the last 2 games. That part still feels good. It is a player that, I've talked about a long time. I've still been having him in my long-term holds, rest of season holds all throughout. I still think that this is a player that you're going to want on your roster at some point, but whether that's next week, I don't know. If this is the bottom of your lineup and there is a legitimate ad out there to make that's actually going to get you some games played, then I'm okay with it. But in general, I'm trying to keep Nick Schmaltz on my teams.
Yeah. And then Maccelli too. Like, where are you at with that player?
Maccelli is doing really well, hot at the moment. I'd love to keep him, but he's not at that same level for me. We just haven't seen a level of production sustained for a long enough time to say this is anything really more than a hot streak. The underlying numbers are solid with Maccelli, but they have dipped already since the start of the streak. So that could be an indication that it's coming to an end here, or he could get back on the horse here with the top power play and things start to continue, I guess, to click. But I just feel much less prioritized about Maccelli, and I imagine the rest of your league does too.
Yeah, there you go. That all makes sense. That all tracks. A couple more players you're probably looking at potentially dropping and probably dropping. Jay-Z, big pimpin', Jason Zucker. We're probably not holding him, although his metrics are better than the first 2 players that we talked about, especially over the last 5 games. That's fine. And then how about Alex Kerfoot, that stud, that points league beauty? He's just popping off. He's getting assists all over the place. But I mean, what are Alex Kerfoot? Oh my God. I love when players like this kind of come out of the woodwork. Like, this guy's getting 20 minutes a night. Alex Kerfoot. I mean, you watched him play. Why is he getting 20 minutes a night, Nate?
That's a great question and not one I'm prepared to answer.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, there's just no way. Like, even with all this production that he's been putting out there, he's now on an 8-goal, 51-point pace on the season.
Yeah.
He ranks 413th in shots per 60 on the season. Like, I'm just not interested. He's got a 69% IPP. Oh no, that's Kadri. Sorry. He's got a 67% IPP. It was almost nice, but
It was nice, but then now it's not as nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the story of Alex Kerfoot's career. Almost nice, but not.
All right, nice. Yeah, again, it's on his business card, right? Do hockey players have business cards? I don't know. Wouldn't it be like professional hockey player Alex Kerfoot right here, 5 points in 5 games? There you go. Yeah, that's what they do on Tinder as well. Just their player card. Where am I going with this? Let's move on. We got to talk about the Calgary Flames and what's going on. Let's fan the Flames in Calgary. So, yeah, the aforementioned Nazem Kadri, he's out there. We've got to think about what we want to do with Kadri, Noah Hannafin, and Blake Coleman. Oh, Blake Coleman's been amazing for me this week and last week. I'm just going to hold him till the wheels fall off. I don't give a damn. No, I do actually. I'll probably drop him. But of those three players, yeah, like where are you at? Kadri in particular, and Kadri and Hannafin. Let's start there.
Hannafin, I think, is a clear drop. Didn't get any power play time last game. For this week, I think like long term, Hannafin is just a guy who's going to get his 40 to 45 points every single year. He's going to give you a little bit in shots, a little bit in hits, a little bit in blocks. He just contributes across all categories, and he's perfectly fine fourth or 50 in most formats. But it's not a player that I feel like I have to hold through a really bad week like this. So if there's options out there and Hannafin's at the bottom of your roster, I'm not going to feel sorry about letting him go. Kadri's more interesting, 25th in shots per 60 over the last 5 games. He's got 4 points in the last 5 games here. Obviously, still top power play and all those things for the Flames. That one's definitely tougher. I'm trying to hang on to Kadri, actually. He's on a 60-point pace for the season, and I think he could actually do better than that. Just a 9.6% on ice shooting percentage. That could come up. Definitely his 7.6% shooting percentage is going to come up. So overall, I'm trying to hang on to Kadri because I do actually think there's some upside there. And then Blake Coleman, I would definitely be dropping. His metrics have started to tank again. Blake Coleman does this. He gets very hot for a short period of time, and then he gets very cold again. He's a little bit like Nino Niederreiter in that sense. You can definitely stream him when he's hot, and he's going to perform for you, but he's definitely going to go cold again. The underlying metrics are trending that way already. And so in a bad week, I'm just not going to take that chance.
Or if you're like me, you stream him in before he gets hot. Bang! That's how we get to biz. Got totally lucky with Blake Coleman in 3 spots. So yeah, he helped me win some matchups last week. Thank you, Blake Coleman, for your service. Yeah, and then so I agree with all that there. Kadri's the one you probably want to hold on to. Jonathan Huberdeau, please leave. You must go now. But look at Jonathan Huberdeau's metrics in the last 5 games. Not terrible. Hey, Nate. Like, not even Jonathan Huberdeau like this guy's 76 overall in shots on goal per 60, 88th in individual Corsi for, 95th in individual scoring chances for. That's what is he doing? I mean, is he turning a corner here, Nate? What do you think?
I don't know if he's really turned a quarter, but it is nice that the underlying metrics are at least there. I think he's just lost all trust there in Calgary at this point, and like you would take a massive, long, extended hot streak for him to really get elevated back up the lineup and used a whole bunch. Like, yeah, I think they obviously want Huberdeau to get going and make that contract not look so terrible, but yeah, I can't be trusting Jonathan Huberdeau at this point. The one player that is a little bit more interesting is Igor Sharangovich. 4 goals, 6 points in his last 5, over 20 minutes a night. Underlying metrics are still bad there. He's shooting 31% through this stretch. On the season, he's shooting just under 17%, and that's a 27 goal pace for the season. So, it's again a spot where the player's producing, the player's hot, and so you can try to hang on to him for that. But again, I'm not going to feel bad about dropping Igor Sharangovich. He's not really given us a lot of indication at any other point throughout his career that he's really going to be a producing player. He has had looks alongside players like Jack Hughes in the past and not really produced at a high level. So this is really the first time we're seeing it. Maybe it's for real. Maybe he's truly taking a step here and he'll continue to get 20 plus minutes a night for the rest of the season. But I would bet against that personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the deployment is really nice. Like when a player gets this kind of deployment, it's he has the trust of the coach, right? And he's out there shorthanded as well. He's killing penalties. Like it's an interesting player. He's definitely, this is going to be a career year for him, regardless of what he does. But yeah, I think I'm not hanging on to Igor Sharangovich. No. All right, let's move on to the Seattle Kraken and look at some of the players that are going to be fringe players here. And we got to start with Eeli Tolvanen. Nate, tell me about Eeli Tolvanen and what you're doing with this player. I feel like you have some feelings about this.
I do. Tolvanen's been really strong for a good portion of the season now. On the season, pacing for 22 goals, 51 points, but really it's been the last, 15 games or so that he's really started to come into his own. He's established a line alongside Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's also up for consideration here. Both of those two, actually, I would be trying to hang on to if I could. Bjorkstrand's underlying metrics have fallen off a little bit, but Tolvanen's still up there, 61st in individual scoring chances for per 60 over the last 5 games here. He's got 3 goals in his last 5 games. Hasn't gotten into any assists, but the 3 goals is solid. Bjorkstrand has 5 points his last 5 games. They're both averaging over 16 minutes a night. It seems like that line is pretty set in stone, and some consistency in a Seattle Kraken lineup that typically doesn't have it is a little bit more interesting to me. So Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand are the two from Seattle that I think I'm actually trying to hang on to if I can. If I absolutely had to, I might drop them, but I am really trying to avoid it.
Yeah, there you go. It's nice. It's different times in Seattle these days. Yeah, give me some consistency. Like that's all we care about in fantasy. Like just give us something that's predictable. And
Yeah.
that team has not been predictable historically. So the other players you're looking at there, Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle. Matty Beniers actually, like he would be a drop to me, but like he looks good out there. He's a slick player. It's just not translating to really some of these metrics or even on ice production, right? But I do like the player. I think he might be he might be a good one. Obviously, he won the Calder in a weak class, in my opinion. But yeah, I like what I see when I watch the player. And then Jordan Eberle, yeah, he does what he does, and we can't ever expect him to do anything more. So I think both those players are probably pretty clear drops. But I'm with you. I like Bjorkstrand a lot, actually. I like him more than Tolvanen. I don't know. And his name is the Jerk Store, Nate. All right, you got to get on these nicknames. All right. It can't just be me pissing off our listeners. All right. I need you on board with me. All right. Can I get a heck yeah?
Heck yeah.
Sweet. All right. That's a verbal contract. Everybody, you heard it. Let's move on. All right. We got to talk about Vegas. They're the other team with 2 games. They do have one off night, though. They play, what is it? They play the Thursday. So, yeah, you're looking at Ivan Barbashev. Bobby Joe, I got a tooth cut on the screen door again. So, yeah, Ivan Barbashev, he's doing okay, but I don't know. Yeah, I think you can drop him. Braden McNabb, depending on your format, like that guy is very valuable in a anything with banger waiting, banger league format, but it's not a must hold guy. And then Chandler Bing Stevenson. Yeah, these guys on Vegas, I'm not too pumped about, but yeah, Barbashev, 5 points in the last 5 games. That's pretty nice. Vegas looks good this year, regardless of their goalie. Like they're doing the thing, man. I think it's Vegas and the Canucks at the top of the league right now, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, I think Barbashev is the one guy that gives you some pause just because of how hot he is. He's never a player that shows out well in the underlying metrics, and he's hasn't the last little bit either, despite the production. 211th in shots per 60, 160th in individual scoring chances for per 60. Even despite playing on that top line alongside Jack Eichel, the on ice numbers are not good. 187th in Corsi for per 60, 145th in scoring chances for per 60. So, yeah, overall, I'm not excited about Barbashev moving forward. I think he's gotten a little bit lucky here with the 50% shooting percentage his last 5 games. Yeah, I think you can drop Barbashev for this week.
Come on, Bobby, let's go party. Ivan Barbashev. I'm going to try and think of some more things to say next time we talk about Ivan Barbashev's name. All right, just leave it with me, everybody. All right, I know what you need, and I got the good stuff. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about the best teams to stream, or again, as Nate likes to call it, Cream's Dream Streams. All right, that's coined by Nate. That's trademarked. All right. The like Nate already mentioned, there's no real clear winners here, right? There's a lot of teams that play 3 games. We want to focus on those Thursdays, right? But if anyone does have the best streaming schedule, it's going to be Philadelphia with 3 games played and the one off night. They play Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So we got to look at some of the streamers there, and they have some good ones, right? I mean, we're looking at players like Sean Couturier, Cam Atkinson, Joel Farabee. And then, a little deeper down the lineup, Tyson Forrester, Rasmus Ristolainen, who has recently been taken off power play 1 in favor of Cam York. And then Morgan Frost, the Tinkly Winkly man. So I don't know, of those players on Philadelphia, who are you looking for?
I mean, obviously, I think Couturier goes to the top of the list. Just his deployment is so secure. He's going to get tons of minutes. He's going to get tons of opportunity. And that's obviously one of the best indications of actual point production. So there's that. Yeah, I think Couturier's the kind of obvious top end guy. this game that they played against, this crazy game they played against Detroit here today, I don't know how much stock you want to put into it. You have a bunch of guys who put up a couple points. Joel Farabee had 2 assists there. Um, yeah, I mean, overall, I think you're just really looking to find some consistency, find those guys with that consistent deployment, like we talked about with the Seattle group there. Unfortunately, in this game, they did something a little bit inconsistent with their top power play. They took out Rasmus Ristolainen and they've gone back to Cam York. It seems like Cam York is like the EX that they just keep going back to for John Tortorella on the
Yeah,
top
the
power play.
consolation prize right
Yeah,
there.
he keeps going to other people, trying it out, trying something new, keeps coming back to Cam York. Maybe this time will stick, but you can't trust that. But the bigger news was actually Owen Tippett getting on the top power play, but that's at the expense of Tyson Forster,
Mhm.
who is actually going to be one of the better streaming options for this week. So take that for how you will. Morgan Frost is still on the top power play. He did have a goal in this game, but he's never really been somebody who pops in the underlying metrics. And that's obviously a little bit scary if you're looking ahead. He's 99th in shots per 60 over the last 5 games, so that part's okay, but I'm just not excited about it. Really, it's Sean Couturier and then Cam Atkinson at least shoots, but he's been awfully cold the last little bit, and so it's hard to get excited about him. It's really Sean Couturier and then a whole bunch of I don't know after that for me right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it bears repeating, like Owen Tippett, he's 53% rostered on Yahoo. So go get Owen Tippett. I would take, if he's on power play one, damn, like this guy is a shot beast. He's just, chucking shots at the net, and he's starting to get rewarded for it. Right. And there's a tweet that, Tortorella put out. He didn't put it out, but someone interviewed him and he said, yeah, I should probably be playing Owen Tippett a little bit more. Right. Yeah. You think, Torts? Like, can we get this guy? Like, it's because he has red hair. I think there's some discrimination there, but that's fine. I don't know. I wouldn't even say that. I don't know Tortorella. He seems like a beautiful man. Does a lot for charity. So shout out to you, Torts. I don't know where I'm going with that. Also, I do have to, the Tinkly Winkly man. I forgot. I used to call Morgan Frost the Tinkly Winkly man. I was listening to an old episode because Morgan Frost is his alter ego, right? That's his identity when he's not a supervillain, the Tinkly Winkly man. So that's where I'm going with that, just to explain the joke, because when you explain a joke, it makes it funnier, doesn't it?
Every single time, like
Oh,
I'm just
totally.
dying now because
Yeah.
you took the time to explain it and now it makes sense and now I'm dying of laughter.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend going over to YouTube and checking out Nate's reactions to this joke, because if you want to see pure joy personified, it's right there on the screen, people. So get your biscuits over there. I digress. All right, so that's Philly. That's what they're doing. All right, let's move on to the other teams that Nate talked about early on: the Edmonton Oilers and the Montreal Canadiens. Some some Canadian content right here. They've got 3 games played with 1 off night. The 2 teams play Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? Yeah, Edmonton pretty stinky for streamers, or are they? Nate, are the Edmonton Oilers stinky for streamers? We're looking at Ekholm, who is actually, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Ekholm is awesome. I have him in 2 spots, and he's been crushing. So definitely go get Ekholm for this week if you're going to stream a week-long stream. And then how about Warren Fogle? Talk to me about Warren Fogle. Well, I can't even say the man's name properly. Nate, help me out.
Yeah, I mean, Warren Fogle is one of those guys who you really don't expect anything from, but then you take a look up and all of a sudden he's playing with Leon Draisaitl, he's scoring goals, and his underlying metrics have just kind of always been terrific. He's kind of got the Evan Rodriguez syndrome where he pumps shots, he gets tons of scoring chances, but he cannot convert for the life of him, and that's kind of been the story of his career. So yeah, Warren Fogle, if you're in the deepest of leagues and you absolutely need a forward stream and Edmonton's schedule fits your lineup, there's a scenario I can see in which you might stream Warren Fogle. Are you going to be excited about it? No, you are not, but there is a scenario in which you might do that. So take that for what it's worth. As you mentioned, though, yeah, Matthias Ekholm, the guy you're looking at from this team, Even just for points straight up, I would take Ekholm over Fogle despite the deployment for Fogle. Ekholm skating 22 minutes a night. He's ninth amongst all defensemen, shots per 60 the last 5 games, fourth in
Nice.
Corsi 4 per 60, ninth in scoring chances 4 per 60. It's just all arrows pointing up for Ekholm right now, and so I'd be pretty excited to stream him actually for next week.
Yeah, absolutely. This message approved by Warren Fogle. Let's move on. All right, we'll talk about the Montreal Canadiens, and there's a few other options here, some interesting ones. Sean Monahan being one. I did stream him in for the back-to-back this week here, and then I punted him. But yeah, he got me something and got me an assist or something like that. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Sean. Caden Gooley as well. Another guy going on the all name team. That's a cool name, Caden. That reminds me of Mortal Kombat, like Raiden. You remember Raiden?
Yeah.
You ever played? That's before your time, but well, actually, what was your time? Did you play fighting games, Nate? Like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, all these?
Not a lot. I was definitely more like just the sports and the NHL and Madden and those, but I did play some, so I know what you're talking about.
You strike me as an RPG guy. Are you hiding some RPG in there?
No, to be quite honest with you, I never really did. I kind of felt like if I did get into that, I'd get lost in it a little bit, so I didn't get into that. I played, yeah, more recently, like once when I was first married and we didn't have kids and responsibilities, I played like League of Legends and stuff like that, but
Ooh, all right.
never really got into the RPGs.
Okay, buddy. All right, we'll take it offline. I got lots of games for you. All right. I spent basically my entire childhood playing games. So there you go. That's why my skin is so pale. It's from lack of vitamin D. I don't go outside. I don't see the sun. So, anyways, I'm moving on. So yeah, Sean Monahan, Caden Gooley. I digress. Josh Anderson as well, who's been playing well lately. And then how about Juraj Slavkovsky? This guy's actually getting a little bit of burn here. And are we interested in this player, Nate? Because he's definitely picked up his game as of late.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 points his last five, 250th in shots per 60 over that span, 137th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. He's been getting this deployment, top line, top power play for a bit of time here. So, I mean, that part's good, but I just
Yep.
remain pretty unexcited about it. Like, yes, you can roster him. Yes, he's in a good position, but like, I just have no confidence that he's not going to just completely goose egg me next week. So
Yeah.
it's really just tough from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only reason I brought it up is because I saw a tweet where someone was quoting the professor, Michael Matheson, basically saying about this man, he's really coming together. He's a lot more certain of himself on the ice. He's playing with lots of confidence, using his body. And once he realizes how big he is, he's going to be scary. That's from the professor talking about Yuri Slavkovsky. So, I mean, if the professor is shouting you out, like, you got to take notice, Nate. All right. The professor. All right. He's got a degree. All right. So yeah, anyways. And then Brendan Gallagher is out there as well. If you're interested in that, I'm not. I mean, who are you taking of these players here, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, Monahan's the clear one from Montreal. Far and away the best stream from Montreal, in my opinion. Goulet is actually a pretty legitimate option from the back end. The one thing I will say about Montreal as well, like obviously none of the guys after Monahan are all that compelling, but they also have Carolina, Florida, and Tampa next week, so they got a bit of a murderer's row in terms of teams that tend to dominate shot share,
Right.
and so it's going to be it's going to be a tough row to hoe for any of these Montreal guys to really score anything. And so I think Monahan's the guy because of the top power play and the history that he's had this year, just a solid year. He's clearly been feeling it for most of the year. Still just a 49-point pace. That's like the level of excitement we get out of our Montreal streamers is a 50-point pace. That's what we consider to be good coming out of there. But yeah, I mean, Caden Gooley in a categories league, especially, is a decent look. Josh Anderson's been relatively hot the last little bit 3 goals, 4 points in his last five, and the underlying numbers back that up. So he's doing his thing where he gets hot for. Yeah, again, it's the same effect, right? It's the Nino Niederreiter effect where he gets hot for 5 to 7 games and then he goes missing again for the next 36. So Josh Anderson, you could try to stay in the Flames there, and then Slavkovsky. Yeah, I just can't get excited about Slavkovsky until we see some sustained level of production and underlying numbers. He's never had the underlying numbers to make me think that there's going to be continued success.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with all of that. That's nice work. All right. So, what we're going to do is this next little section here, we want to talk about the teams that play on Thursday. They play on that off night. This is even more important this week than ever because of the way that the week is structured. So, we're just going to talk about the 5 teams that play on Thursday and give you some players, and Nate's going to pick from those players. So let's see what we do here. First, the teams that play on the Thursday are the Carolina Hurricanes, the Los Angeles Kings, San Jose Sharks, the Vancouver Canucks, the Vegas Golden Knights. There's got to be one more in there, Nate. I'm not seeing a show sheet, but what is it? I don't
I
know.
think we got them all because
Okay.
Philly, Edmonton,
Oh, yeah.
Montreal.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got
Sweet.
8.
Yeah, that's why Nate's here. All right, to keep us on the rails. Okay, so let's talk about these other teams. So Carolina, we're looking at the bunt cake, Michael Bunting, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Brady Shea. Who are you picking of those 3?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird spot, but I think I might take Bunting. It's weird because he is playing on the 4th line, but he has been on the top power play, and that's kind of the best of what you're going to get there. Like Kakanyemi's been playing 12 minutes a game. His
Yeah,
underlying
ugly.
numbers are actually really good, but man, it's so hard to take anybody there. I mean, Brady Shea, if you need a defenseman, that might be honestly an even better and more consistent look. He's power play 2. At the moment, as long as D'Angelo's out, he gets power play 2, so that's also a look. I'll say Bunting, but I'm not excited about any of them.
Okay, and I'm gonna have to go with Bunting as well because I just want to say bunt cake again. But yeah, power play. That's probably a team I'm staying away from on that Thursday unless I absolutely have to stream someone in from there. Let's move on to the LA Kings and check this out. Quentin Byfield is 49% roster. Damn. Okay, Quentin Byfield, PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Philip Deneau, Arthur Kaliev, and then Matt Roy on the LA Kings. Of those 5, a big surprise here. Nate, who are you taking?
I'm taking Quentin Byfield here. You just have to,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. Honestly, like his underlying metrics have not been all that compelling of late. He's only got 2 assists his last 5 games. Things have fallen off a little bit from the big streak that he was on, but he was kind of redlining throughout that streak. So that part is not all um, that tough to believe in, really. He's still got the deployment. As long as he's line 1, power play 1, you have to be excited about Quentin Byfield. And if he's been dropped in your league, you should definitely add him.
Yep, it's a no-brainer, and that's what we're talking about here. Like, you could go Michael Bunting, or you could get Quentin Byfield. Like, what are we doing here? You go get Quentin Byfield, and you lock it in immediately, and probably hold him rest of the season. So there you go. That's an easy one for me. Kaliev does look good, though. Damn, like he's a really good player. I love the way he shoots. Like, it's like I can see the statistics, the advanced metrics when I'm watching the player. I'm like, oh, boom, there's another one. There's a high danger. Like, I'm just watching this man do what he does, right? So he's an interesting player. I hope he has a good career and maybe carves out a little bit more of a role for himself there on the Kings. But anyways, that's just waxing poetic on Kaliev. But yeah, Byfield's the one there. Let's move over to San Jose. San Jose Sharks, we're looking at still Tomas the Turtle Hurdle at 50%, Mikhail Granlund, William Eklund, Fabian Zetterlund, and then Philip Zadina. Nate's recent, love in fantasy hockey. Who are you taking here?
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting. Like Zadina got up on the top line. They scratched Barabanov kind of late,
Yeah.
and Zadina just got thrust into his place, and he had a really nice game on the top line. So I don't know if they'll continue to keep that going, but it's worth noting in your absolute deepest of leagues.
Yeah.
Um, Realistically, like Granlund, Eklund, Zetterlund, and then Mike Hoffman has been up on the top power
Right.
play along with Thomas Hurdle. I'm not into Hoffman whatsoever. Zetterlund has had a really nice run under the hood, but it's kind of come crashing down the last few games, so that's a little bit scary. None of these guys look good under the hood, but I will take William Eklund. He's got 3 points his last 5, 26th in the league in both Corsi for and scoring chances for over the last 5 games here, so he's been driving some play.
Wow.
I like
Yep.
to see that, and I'm into Eklund for that reason.
Love it. I got to go with my boy Hurdle. All right. I got to go with Old Faithful. All right. It makes me feel good inside. But yeah, William Eklund, this guy's a player. Just needs some surrounding cast there on the team. But he's got great offensive acumen and can clearly handle the minutes that he's getting. So I like that. All right. We talked about the Vancouver Canucks a little bit, but for that team, we're looking at Ilya Mikheyev, Pius Suter, and Nils Hoglander, and then Big Kuzi if he's out there. But I mean, damn. We already talked about that. Of these 4 studs on the best team in the league. Who are you taking, Nate?
Yeah, if you are grabbing somebody from Vancouver just for that one night, that Saturday or that Thursday night that they do play next week, it's got to be Ilya Mikheyev for me. If he is available, he's just got the best metrics. He's got the best production on the season. He's got the most cemented role in my mind. It's got to be Mikheyev.
Yeah, he's playing with Petey. All right, and this guy skates like a gazelle. He's amazing out there. Love that player. They really missed him last season. I think it's the that reason and that reason alone that they sucked so bad last year. Right? No Ilya Mikheyev. All right, so that's a hot take. That's what we call a spicy nug, right, Nate?
Absolutely.
Sweet. Thank you for the validation. Let's move on. Last team, the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, I'm not going to do it again, but we're looking at Barbashev, we're looking at McNabb, and we're looking at Stevenson. Of those three units, who are you rolling with?
It's got to be Barbashev there for all the reasons we already talked about. Top line, he's on a hot streak right now. You just hope he keeps it up for one more game.
Yep, there you go. I'm taking Barbie as well. And that's that. Those are really the teams. But again, this is an exciting week to sort of pick a player up that maybe you want to hold the rest of the season, right? So every other team we didn't mention plays either Friday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday. So there you go. Nate, take it home. Let's talk about the best players to stream.
Yeah, so I'm ranking everyone here as we do. I'm really just picking from the three teams, Philadelphia, Edmonton, Montreal, that we talked about at the start as week-long streams. I played with this. I even made a bunch of changes to this ranking as we were talking about the teams here. It's gross. We'll put it that way. Couturier is the clear number one in my mind, tier above everyone else. The production is there some weeks and it's not there other weeks, but the deployment is absolutely guaranteed with Sean Couturier, and he has been quite decent the last little bit, but skating over 21 minutes a night through the last 5 games, you just have to feel good about Sean Couturier as a reliable type streamer option for the week. Matthias Ekholm, I bumped up all the way to number 2. I just feel like it's such a big opportunity playing 22 minutes a night with the Oilers. The way they're going, his underlying metrics are through the roof, and it really seems like he's being asked to do a little bit more offensively than he ever has before, obviously through most of his career in Nashville. And honestly, he did have that one stretch in Nashville where I believe Yossi went down and he went on the top power play and he produced like a fantasy stud for like
Yep,
a pretty
I
solid
remember.
stretch. So, yeah, I'm into Matthias Ekholm. I actually think he's probably the second best streamer for the week, but definitely a tier below Couturier for me. Sean Monahan would be the only other consideration to Ekholm, kind of a same tier situation for me. Monahan's just getting obviously consistent top power play deployment there and has been pretty decent the last little bit, 3 points in his last 5. So I'll take him there. Then you go down, and honestly, you could throw all these guys into a hat and shuffle them up and deal them out anyway, and I wouldn't feel too sad about how it came out. But I've got Cam Atkinson at number 4, followed by Morgan Frost, Tyson Forster, Joel Farabee, Cam York, Josh Anderson, and your boy Warren Fogle. So
I would love
let's
it if Warren Fogle was my boy. All right. Call me Warren.
that's how I'll do it. Obviously, Cam York dependent on top power play. If I felt really confident that he was going to keep top power play, he might actually move up the list a little bit. But yeah, it's basically just any of those top 9 Philly forwards that you could look at if the top 3 on this list are already rostered. And then, yeah, Josh Anderson, you can try to stay in the relative flames there with him. But as I mentioned, Montreal has a bit of a murderer's row next week, too. So that doesn't look too exciting. And then Fogle, you can just hope that Draisaitl sets him up for a few can't misses, and he doesn't have to place his shots too
There
hard.
you go.
What do you think about this list, Blake? Any changes you'd make?
God, this is painful, right? This is just a gross list, but that's only because of the week that we're looking at. So yeah, I love the Matthias Ekholm love. I'm here for it. I want to see this guy do well. Yeah, like I said, I've got him in 3 spots, and he's really been producing for me, like old faithful, basically, very reliable, and chips in with the occasional point, and he's out there with great players. So yeah, I love that. I like him at second there too. That's not even spicy. That's just reasonable.
All right, let's keep rolling. Hits and blocks. So for hits, Nicolas Delorier is the top of the list off of Philadelphia. Then Matthias Ekholm, who's actually been throwing the body a fair bit in this last little stretch, especially. So you can try to stay hot with the blocks, if that's a term that we can use, or stay hot with the hits rather. I don't know if that's really a thing, but we can try
That's
it out,
yeah,
see how
yeah.
it goes.
Hashtag stay hot with the hits. Oh yeah, that sounds weird. All right, let's move on.
Caden Gooley makes this list. Gooley's definitely a hits blocks across the board, a little bit of a monster and all those things. So that's a good option. Nick Seeler and Rasmus Ristolainen off of Philadelphia also do that thing. Best for blocks ranked, David Savard is back from Montreal, and that's pretty much his greatest contribution to the sport of hockey is that he blocks everything and anything around him. So he's the top option there, followed by Gooley, Ristolainen, Sean Walker, who does a bit of that, and then Nick Seeler again. Any thoughts on the hits and blocks guys here, Blake?
Love it. Hot for hits. Yeah, that's another. We're trying things out here. No, it's great. I do want to shout out Chris Tanev, even though that's they don't play the 3 games, but this guy had a 10 block game the other night. Chris Tanev, that he's going to be a free agent, or he's going to be like one of those trade targets come trade deadline time. So keep an eye on Chris Tanev. 10 blocks. What are you doing, my man? It took out his last 2 teeth. It's terrible.
All right, let's keep going and talk about the best players to add for the future, long-term plays here, guys that you might want to pick up, especially in this week, and hang on to potentially for the rest of the season if all things work out well. I actually wrote this list before Quentin Byfield came available, so that's why you won't hear him here, but I do want to talk about the 5 that I did have in here because I think they're all pretty interesting. Top of the list is still Nick Schmaltz. I do believe that at some point, whether it's just the injury healing or whatever the underlying reason for the latest cold stretch is, maybe that's already broken with this latest game with a couple of points, and he's going to get hot from here and just be on fuego for the rest of the season, perhaps. Who knows? But I do think Nick Schmaltz will get hot at some point and be probably the best player under 50% rostered in terms of point production for the rest of the season. Troy Terry, number 2 here. Didn't have any points in the last game, but still continuing to do that thing. And he's got reinforcements on the way, which should only help his case. Josh Norris, that beautiful streamer. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life was to pick Josh Norris for the head to
Oh
head
damn.
streamer deathmatch. Followed very closely by one Gabriel Velarde, who we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, Josh Norris, absolutely feeling it right now. And yeah, a guy that obviously I was campaigning for because his metrics suggested that he should get there. His deployment suggested that as well. And things have continued. Dylan Strome makes a list here. We had a couple of graduates from this list from the last time around. So we got a couple new names as well. Dylan Strome has kind of cemented himself, honestly, in my opinion, as top line center for Alex Ovechkin and top power play. And I think that's going to mean a lot of points coming Dylan Strome's way. And he's been up to the task so far. You've seen this with Strome when he does get attached to good players. I don't think he's necessarily good enough to really elevate an entire line on his own. But when he gets attached to good players, he's absolutely able to play off them and to play well with them. And so I think Strome has kind of, now reached a point where I feel like he's a little bit locked in. I think they're just totally disenfranchised with Kuznetsov there, and Strome's a little bit locked in. And so that's why I'll give him this billing here. And then lastly, Kirill Marchenko, who scored an absolutely nasty between the legs top cheese
Yeah.
goal the other night as part of a hat trick. You've heard me talk about Marchenko and my love for this player. I think he's terrific, and it really does seem like the Marchenko, Chinikov, and Voronkov line is just like the one line that Pascal Vincent absolutely loves for no apparent reason. I don't know exactly why, but hey, we can take that and we can get excited about Kirill Marchenko as a result. Sub 20% rostered, Sam Bennett has dipped below this. Now, they did play around with the lines. They moved to Chuck to the Barkov line, probably just trying to get to Chuck going. I think in the long term, you probably see Bennett with Chuck and Verhage because that has been a line with a lot of success in the past. But regardless, Bennett is still kind of doing the thing. He's still pumping shots, doing what he does. It's really just been that the players around him haven't been scoring, and so he's got a little bit of that Dylan Strome element where if the players around him aren't completely popping off, then it's hard for him to get those points. But 11th in Corsi 4 per 60, 21st in scoring chances 4 per 60 is Sam Bennett over the last 5 games, and he's got 3 points there as well. So definitely like Sam Bennett, sub 20% rostered, sub 10% rostered. You can still grab Marco Rossi, who obviously had a huge game, and yeah, he's making a case right now. 5 points his last 5 games, including the 3 point night the other night. I think Rossi's making a case for himself to stick around in a lot of these conversations, and he's clearly at least the sixth man for that top power play. Whenever somebody's injured, he's going to be there, and that's going to make him rosterable rest of season in a fair amount of formats, in my mind. Your thoughts, Blake?
Yeah, no, I love when Marchenko was popping off there. I was thinking about you. That was like it's long overdue. This player he's a great player and he's starting to get prioritized, and I really like that. So yeah, shout out to Marchenko. I always when you do this section, I always kind of just search through and see if there's any players that maybe snuck through the cracks here. And I do think not that he's must roster by any means, but Trevor Zegras. Like again, we need to look at Trevor Zegras. I was also looking at Nick Paul just for kind of his recent production, not really, again, the numbers that are happening, but I mean, he's on the top power play and he's getting top 6 deployment there in Tampa. So just someone to keep an eye on if he's out there, right? Like he's sub 20% Nick Paul. So when Tampa has a good schedule, he certainly should be on our roster, but yeah, he's got like 6 points in his last 2 games. So but it's a great list.
Yeah, Nick Paul is a good shout. He actually did get up on the top line with Kucherov and Point in the last game, as well as the top power play. So that obviously makes him even more interesting. And so he is definitely a good shout. I'm just a little bit less convinced that
Yeah.
sticks around. And so that's why he doesn't make the list over some of the other names we've talked about. But definitely a player to be interested in for the moment. All right, let's switch over to defense. Top of the list, still Torrey Krug, still doing the thing. Is Torrey Krug. After a slow start, seems like he's found his groove here. Still, yeah, absolutely doing the thing. 3 assists in his last 5 games, over 21 minutes a night. That was one concern I had with the new coach. Would he actually get deployment at even strength? Still getting power play, obviously, but the even strength deployment was a concern, and he's absolutely getting that. 38th in shots per 60, 45th in on ice Corsi 4 per 60, 21st in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 amongst all defensemen in this last 5 games. That's really solid numbers, honestly, for Krug. I think he actually has room to improve on his season long 38-point pace. I think he could definitely push past the 50-point pace for the rest of the season. So, like Torrey Krug a fair bit. Number 2 is still going to be Noah Hannafin. You could flip-flop him with Matthias Ekholm. Honestly, I might do that in the show notes after this because I am starting to really get excited about Ekholm there in Edmonton. Hannafin's just so steady. Like, it just feels like you absolutely know what you're going to get from him over the course of a season. Might have cold stretches and hot stretches, but over the course of the season, you're just going to be pretty happy with what you get out of him. I will say that it is pretty scarce out there in the defenseman waiver wire, and I've talked about that at length before as well. Jared Spurgeon, Pavel Minchikov round out the list. I'm not super excited about either player. Minchikov, his minutes have decreased just a little bit throughout the season here. I was hoping that they might go the other way, but it doesn't seem like it. He is still getting kind of top power play deployment, but they have kind of switched which units they've been using more from game to game. And so it's kind of become more of a 1A, 1B thing. And so that's obviously taking some of the shine off of Minchikov's potential production. Still love the player, still think the world of him. But yeah, that's why he's continuing to trend down for sure. Sub 20% roster. I actually had a couple players that I couldn't really decide between. Obviously, Brock Faber, what he's been able to do has been undeniable, but I'm not sure what Spurgeon's imminent return or hopefully imminent return means for Brock Faber. So I didn't want to just crown him king at this point, especially when we have a player like Simon Nemec. I actually read how to pronounce his name, and that's not it. I'll try to.
Oh,
I'll
damn it.
try to
I thought
find
you were
that one.
good. I'm like, yeah, Nemec. That's what we said.
Nemec, I think is correct, but I think it's like Shimon,
Shimon.
something like that.
Shimon, Nemec. Shimon.
Yeah, The interesting part for me about Nemec right now is that he's fourth amongst all defensemen in individual scoring chances for per 60, and he's skating over 21 minutes a night. That's just, yeah, it's really good, really good numbers from him there. Just the one assist to show for it in the last 5 games, but pretty impressive, honestly, what he's been able to do as a teenager. And honestly, like Luke Hughes has 0 points his last 5 games, so who's to say that Nemec doesn't get a look there at some point on that top power play unit? If that happens, everybody's going to be screaming for him. So maybe you want to take that shot this week and just see if something changes. Sub 10% rostered. So I kind of cheated the line here a little bit. I got Thomas Harley here at exactly 10%. 5 points his last 5 games, including 3 goals. First amongst all defensemen in individual scoring chances for per 60, skating just under 20 minutes a night. So not quite the same deployment, but definitely producing at the moment and with good underlying stats. So I like Thomas Harley a lot. He's on a great team. He's definitely going to get points just because of that. So you can definitely do worse than Thomas Harley. From these players, Blake, who are you liking? Who are you hating?
I love your bid on Nemec. That's awesome. And I'm a big fan of Brock Faber. I picked him up in 3 spots as well just during this stretch here. So that's been really nice. Yeah, I like all these guys. I love talking about Ekholm. I think that's going to be a great player moving forward. One player I did want to shout out that I have in a couple spots as well, and it has to be the right format, but Adam Larson. This guy, oh my God, I have him in Cupful, and he just does stuff. Like his periffs are ridiculous. Like he's on a 22-point pace. So we're not talking like it has to make sense in your format, but this guy's 37% rostered. He's crushing these periffs, and sometimes he'll come out with like a 7-shot game. He does stuff like that, but his periffs are ridiculous. Just an interesting player. Someone to keep an eye on. Streamer, I've held him in a couple spots because of just the consistent value that he's bringing.
Sounds good. Long-term plays in net. We got Joey Decord at the top of the list here. Obviously having a terrific week so far. I don't know, honestly, how long this might continue. I don't know if he's going to be the 0G guy for the year, but I did pick up Decord. I know you did as well, Blake. We were talking before. Yeah, he's just been terrific the last little bit, and I'll ride the Flames there as long as I can. I talk about long-term plays. I've put that in air quotes a fair bit when it comes to goalies. If you've heard me talk about goalies at any point, you know that there's no such thing as a long-term play at goalie for me personally. So Joey Decord about as good as it gets at the moment, but definitely we'll have to see when Grubauer does come back what the share of that net might be. I honestly think like they're trying to win. They're trying to win games here in Seattle. So whoever is giving them the best chance to do that, I think they'll roll with for a majority of games. Charlie Lindgren, number 2, had another good game. Been a little bit inconsistent of late, but I still think he's probably going to be a 1A at this point, just given his play versus Kemper's. So I do like Lindgren, and I do still like Elvis Merzlikins. I think he's going to get the team around him is just getting absolutely caved in. They're terrible defensively. They have no defensive structure whatsoever. So he's going to get a lot of shots, and if that's good for you in your league, then Merzlikins is a good option because he's actually pretty good at playing net. Sub 25% rostered. I'm going to shout out Alex Nedeljkovic here. It's obviously a bit of a deep cut, but Jari has kind of coughed up a few bad games here, and Nedeljkovic has been there to clean things up. He's played quite well the last little bit here, has garnered 3 wins for Pittsburgh here and come in for relief of Tristan Jarry as well. And so, yeah, I'm just starting to think that maybe Nedeljkovic is actually going to take some of the net from Jarry. Obviously, they gave Jarry a contract in the offseason, and he's part of their long-term plans, but I don't think that totally precludes the possibility that Nedeljkovic could work his way into, at the very least, a timeshare and potentially even a lion's share of the Pittsburgh net.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. What about James Reimer? This man just won 7-6, Nate, and you're not give him his flowers, buddy. He's only 17% rostered, so I don't know. Their goalies are not coming back anytime soon in Detroit. Like it's this guy's net for a little while. So for better or for worse, right? Detroit is a terrible defensive environment. They give up a boatload of shots and chances. So again, if suits your team, and get the biz with James Reimer. There you go.
All right. I cannot sign off on James Reimer at this point in his career,
So
but
salty.
Yeah, it is something, that's for sure. I did actually stream James Reimer in one league. I had a bunch of ads left and I was just looking for warm bodies to stream in net and I was like, James Reimer could have a good game here, right? And I managed to talk myself into it. No.
Yeah.
Should have stuck with the original thought process there. All right, we've got to talk about the head-to-head streamer deathmatch because I continue to win pretty much at will at this point. Three straight W's for Nate.
I love
The
this.
season long stats don't really matter. All you need to know is that I've won three in a row. Gabe Velarde just absolutely went off this week. Had
Yeah.
3 goals, 3 assists in 3 games, 29 couple points. Nick Ehlers had a nice week, a goal and 3 assists himself, but that's only 19 points. We both picked great players, Blake. I think we should both pat ourselves on the back. Obviously, you picked incorrectly and I picked spectacularly, but we'll let that slide for this week. Uh, do you have anything to say about the matchup that was?
Yeah, that's a bit hurtful, but you know what? I'm going to shake it off. I'm all right. I love it actually when we both pick a good player because Nate and I have been in some quote unquote battles. All right, and it's literally like 6 points to 4. All right, yay! So I love that these players went off. That's awesome. And I also want to bring to everyone's attention in the show notes, Nate literally put Nate won 3 straight in brackets. All right. We're the only ones reading it. Oh, God. That's fine, Nate. All right. I'll give you your flowers. All right. Because you're a champion and you can't be held down. All right. That's clear.
Yeah, I honestly I can't help myself sometimes when it comes to talking trash, even when I have no like legitimate reason to stand on my performance. Like on the season it is 6-4 for Blake still. Did not have a good showing to start the year, but I just find it so much
You're
fun. I
warming up.
can't help
You're warming
myself.
up.
All right, our picks for next week. We're basically just picking almost any team except for the four with the bad schedule that we mentioned earlier. So basically picking players from a vast number of teams. With Quentin Byfield ducking under the 50% line, I am going to pick Quentin Byfield for the week. Still getting top power play and top line deployment in LA, and I think he will get some points for me this week. Who's going to be your guy, Blake?
Just cheesy, Nate. Just a technicality right there. I think that's. I actually got to call Yahoo and see if these numbers are accurate. I don't know. I'm gonna take your boy Josh Norris. All right,
Ooh.
that's who we're getting to biz with. They played Toronto in the first game, so I'm hoping Ilya Samsonov or Martin
Yeah,
Staal, he can win it in the one game. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm
it's
looking
true.
for here. So that's where we're at.
Yep, definitely a solid chance that you might score 9 against the Leafs with the current iteration of their goaltending. All right. Well, if you've made it this far, please do like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or even if you're not, you can head over to the YouTube channel and hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out. We're trying to get to 1,000 people, and I have seen those numbers creeping up on the subscriptions, so I do appreciate each and every one of you who have done that. While you're here, if you are interested in getting some more advice, you can check out the Apples and Genos Patreon. You can get some personalized advice from myself for your teams. So check out those options. All links in the show description. As Blake mentioned, we have a totally exciting and popping off Discord server with over 1,000 members at this point, which is super exciting. Everybody's having a good time in there talking hockey. We recently added, it was a great suggestion, we added a game discussion channel. So if you're watching games and your wife and kids have no interest in hearing you yell at the sky about the happenings on the screen that are not helping your fantasy teams, then you can come and complain in there. We can all commiserate together. And lastly, I want to say thanks. That's all we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value and helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying the music for this podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.